So, hi Ian, welcome to the CHEMUK studio. It's great to have you. We're really looking forward to having you guys come and join us on site as the IChemE, and especially for your 2-day mini conference you're going to be hosting with us. We can't wait to hear more about that further down the line. But today we're not just here to talk about the IChemE at ChemUK. We're actually also here to talk about the IChemE and the amazing work you guys are doing. So let's get straight into it. My first question for you is, for anyone who might not know you well, or the IChemE well, could you briefly describe what the IChemE is and its role in the chemical process industry?
Yeah, sure. So, IChemE is the professional home of over 32,000 chemical process and biochemical engineers. We act as like the custodians of the industry, so we make sure that we're looking after standards. We manage the chartered process, so when engineers want to become chartered professionals, we look after their route through that. We're also heavily involved in making sure that we increase safety standards across the industry, helping to promote the educational routes through our accredited programs with universities, and the career progression through our accredited programs with our accredited company training schemes.
So essentially, you're a huge integral part to the chemical industry then, and making sure that everyone's on the right track, can grow, and really make sure that they're engaged in the industry essentially.
Yeah, definitely. It's all about those standards. So making sure those professional standards are reached by all the engineers, but also as an industry that we all push those standards as high as we can. Engineers need to be trusted. They need to perform high because they perform a really important role within society. So we need to have those faith in what they do, and that everything's done as safely as possible as well.
You're the safety gurus, basically.
Right, yeah.
Amazing. So then, from the IChemE's perspective, what are the biggest trends and challenges that are currently shaping the chemical and process industries?
Yeah, so there's lots happening around energy and net zero, and that's something that chemical and process engineers are heavily involved in. Always trying to find different and sustainable energy sources to help with that transition. Beyond that, there's a lot of focus on waste reduction and making sure that we are delivering solutions to the manufacturing and to pharmaceutical productions, everything in the most sustainable way. And then lastly, we've mentioned it already, but the biggest thing that we're always concerned about is safety. To make sure that every process that an engineer implements is done in the best, most responsible way possible. So safety is always a theme that we forever come back to.
So it's interesting that you talk about sustainability. With that in mind, what type of growth or innovation areas, so like net zero technologies or sustainable materials or bioprocessing, are you most excited about now, especially coming from such a high level of expertise?
Yeah, I think there's lots of really exciting things happening around that energy piece. Obviously, as as a society are looking to transition away from fossil fuels, there's lots of alternative things that people are looking into, and it's really about chemical and process engineers being involved in that mix of energy. So there's lots of things that they're helping with. So be it things like involved in hydrogen as an alternative energy source. It's not the be all and solution to everything, but it's part of the mix that we can look to look at more sustainable fuels. Chemical and process engineers heavily involved in that nuclear piece as well, and in those more sort of traditional fossil fuels, but looking to find ways to make them more energy efficient so we have to burn less.
Brilliant. I mean, it's present in quite a few industries. In talking about the safety of these productions of these new fuels like hydrogen, ammonia, methanol, things like that. So to know that you guys are on top of it and are looking to make, you know, everyone aware of how they can be safe whilst developing these new fuels is really exciting. And I think lots of people will be excited to talk to you about that on site, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I think when we think about all of these fuels, that everything is, and this is the role of engineers to find the solutions to those challenges. That something sounds really good on paper, but it's actually putting it into practice, and that's where those chemical and process engineers come up with those real world solutions to take one lot of fuel from one situation and turn it into something that we can actually use.
Amazing. So moving a bit more into the engineering side of the conversation, what are some of the IChemE's main priorities at the moment in terms of supporting the industry and specifically the engineering community?
Yeah, I think we've got quite a few different priorities that we're looking at. Currently, at the moment, one really big thing we're really interested in is that skills piece, making sure that we are providing the right skills for the engineers, not just the engineers that come through now and thinking about today, but we're thinking about the engineers of tomorrow. What do they need to know? You know, how is things like digitalization and AI going to affect their work? What's their daily life going to look like? And are we making sure that they're ready and prepared for that change in their working world? So really investing a lot in understanding that skills piece. But we're also spending a lot of effort, and this is why I'm coming along to something like CHEMUK is great, because we're spending a lot of effort in trying to make sure we're connecting with those employers. So we're not trying to understand that skills piece in a vacuum. We're actually doing it in conjunction with the employers who are looking to what they need, and making sure that we're really having a sort of holistic view of what that piece looks like. And then the last piece that we're really interested in is making sure that we are being a community for those engineers. We really need to make sure that we are developing not just skills but additional resources for those engineers, so that they know that they can trust in everything that IChemE provides for them. And it really is a provision of a member service that we look to provide. So be that ways for them to develop themselves, or to upskill, or to just exchange knowledge and understanding and their experiences.
So it sounds like you're really securing the future for these engineers as well, making sure that, you know, your members are updated, involved, and prepared for any changes that are going to happen within the industry.
Yeah, we really we always say it's not just about what's tomorrow's engineer, it's about the engineer in 5, 10, 15 years. Yeah. That's where we're trying to look as long term as possible.
I think we all know how much things can change in 5 years at the moment. So then moving on to a couple of the few key initiatives then that the IChemE is currently running that you think are particularly important for the sector and particularly important for engineers right now.
Some of the key initiatives we're working on will involve building out our, as I said before, our employer support. So really working on that network of employers. We're trying to establish a really strong group of employers who communicate with each other, and we're providing that platform for them to talk across purposes, so they can really start to collaborate and help to raise those standards and the safety issues that we spoke about. We're also working a lot on that career progression point. So we've focused quite a lot on early careers, making sure that we're providing pathways and routes for new engineers to enter the industry. But one thing that we're finding that we need to focus on more and more is that mid-career stage of people, where we get people in and we have graduates come through, but what we want to do is retain that skills and experience and not lose it as people leave the industry. So working on mid-career pathways is another opportunity for us at the moment.
Okay, nice. So you mentioned skills and talent. They're very critical to the sector, as you mentioned, especially taking people from, as you said, early engineers to professional engineers and keeping them within the industry to take them further. How is the IChemE then helping to attract and develop the support of the next generation and the continual generation of process engineers?
Yeah, so we it's always a thing to try.
It's a big question, isn't it?
And that's as a membership organisation, that's what we try to do. We are out there trying to attract members all the time, and we have so I'm head of regional engagement, and our regional engagement team are really focused on that. That's what we do all the time. So we take ourselves to employers. Our whole ethos is not to sit in an office and expect everybody to come to us. We're out there, we go and visit those employers, and we make sure that we're doing that, communicating, listening, understanding, talking to the members as much as possible. We're out visiting those universities, so we can attract those students and make sure that they understand all that IChemE has to offer them and help them progress. So it really is about being as external facing and outward looking as possible, and that's how we're trying to attract those members. But it's not just about getting them in. We need to be responsive and understand what they need, and that's a lot of what we're building out with our ways to develop them. So we're looking at all of the resources that we have on offer, so that once somebody becomes a member, there's endless amount of things at their fingertips that really will help them throughout their career, help them take those next steps as an engineer. And it's that suite of resources which I think is vitally important to those engineers.
I really like the way you talk about sort of that sense of community and that sense of, being out there, being in touch with your members and making sure that they're getting the best out of you that they can, and that they're constantly up on safety standards, and they're growing as a member, but they're growing as individuals as well. So I think that sense of community is amazing and just what this industry needs, really.
And that community aspect is so important for us, because we are powered by volunteers. So a lot of what the IChemE does outside of things like the staff team doing our regional engagement, a lot of the rest of the things is all powered by our volunteers. So we have member groups. So that's collections of regional members who will have volunteer committees who help put on events and activities for engineers regionally. We have special interest groups where they will do that around a particular topic or an industry that they can focus on and provide resources and webinars and things that engineers can engage with. And then all of our professional standards, that's all staffed by volunteers who will help provide the knowledge and understanding and help educate other engineers as well.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm going to shift the conversation slightly, just because I want to ask how you see the role of the professional chemical engineer changing over the next decade. We talked about changing in the short term and how much can change in a short term, but you also mentioned that you look for the future as well. So what's your opinion on what the chemical engineer of today will look like in a decade?
Yeah, so I mean, a chemical engineer's role, it's always been one that can be so varied.
Yeah.
It involves all aspects. They may be out on site getting their hands dirty, or they could be involved in design elements, or working out and implementing systems. So it's such a varied role, and I don't think that will change. I think there's always going to be that element of variety and of engineers needing to be everywhere. But we can't ignore the advent of digitalization and AI, and that's going to change the way they work. So what we have to try and do is be ahead of that. As I mentioned, we have our special interest groups. One is focused on exactly that, the whole digitalization piece and what happens, and that's our members looking to the future and working out what that future is going to look like. So now what we're trying to do is, as you say, plan for that engineer of 10 years' time. And we know a lot of some of the computational things that they may be involved in, there are going to be systems that are going to help them with that. But then it will come down to choices, and that's the part that the engineers, you can't replace that element of the engineers, making sure that those choices are made and that the choices that they're making are based around those principles of ensuring safety and that it's got the best outcomes and that societal good.
Brilliant. Sounds like it's a heavy job, can't lie. But then in light of the changes you were talking about, digitalization, for example, you mentioned that you are offering already in your group one of volunteers support and help in that area for the chemical engineer of tomorrow. But how are you yourself as the IChemE adapting to make sure that you're staying relevant for these employers and for these engineers, so that you're constantly helping them refresh and be present?
Yeah, so I think we are always trying to adapt, and this is why I mentioned before that we're working on our employer networks and understanding our members, because we're trying to adapt not based on what we think is best and what we say. It's less of a not so much of a top down thing. It's very much we're trying to do those make changes and adaptations based on collaboration with our networks, with our employers, with our members, with our volunteers. So any adaptation we make is really grounded in the industry and what people are really looking for out of IChemE. We're also always trying to find ways to make ourselves more accessible. There are more variety of people entering the industry, and we need to make sure that every process we have, every way that people can engage with us is as open as possible. As we always say, we always want to find ways to say yes rather than ways to say no. So that's part of the adaptations that we're trying to look for. So there's lots of processes that we're currently going through a series of modernization to make sure that those processes are fit for now, but also fit for that engineer of the future, and that we're constantly changing, adapting. If we're talking about the engineer of the future, we need to be the institution of the future as well.
Yeah, and again, I like that you bring it all back to community again, and it's a shared effort that you're willing to listen to people's challenges now to help them, but you're also offering them a chance to grow in the future, as you say, with staying valuable and relevant to the engineers. So
yeah, and it's that input. It's the cycle of feedback, understanding, asking new questions, and posing them to the members, and hearing those responses. That continuous cycle. We ask them to do continuous professional development, and we have to do continuous improvements on ourselves.
yeah, so I'm going to again stay on the topic of community, but I'm going to again shift the direction to discuss about CHEMUK. You guys have a stand, you have a 2-day mini conference at the show. So what brings you to what brings the IChemE to CHEMUK, and how does the event support you with your community and reaching that wider sector?
Yeah, I think like ChemUK, it for us it represents a great opportunity. I always say I want to be in the room where it happens, and that is very much what ChemUK is. It's where all of the engineers will come for various reasons. There's lots of things for them to experience and see. But it's not just the engineers that come there, it's all those also surrounding roles and opportunities as well. So other industries that are sort of adjacent to engineering as well. Everything around it, which also is helpful to us. We network with our engineers and with employers, but also with complementary industries where we find there's now an opportunity for us to collaborate on an event that helps our membership, but it helps their membership as well. And those opportunities are really golden. So it's that space of bringing everyone and everything together.
And I will never ever turn down a Hamilton reference ever. I absolutely loved that. So then, for people who are planning on meeting you at ChemUK, what is the one key message you would like them to take away with them?
The takeaway I would give you is that chemical engineers are key to most of those big solutions that we need as a society. So we've spoke about net zero, we've spoke about sustainability, about safety, all of these things. The chemical engineer and process engineers, they're central to that. So when we're looking for these big solutions that are going to move society, you can probably bet that there'll be a process or chemical engineer right behind it, sort of behind the scenes pulling the strings. So that's the thing. It may not be the work that you see, but it's that vital work that really has to happen in order for us to move forward.
I think I've loved this interview. I've loved getting to know the IChemE a bit more. I think it's a really integral association to support the industry and especially those chemical engineers. And we at ChemUK are really excited to have you on board, and we cannot wait for your 2-day conference, the mini conference at ChemUK. I know you'll be releasing details soon as the more information comes out. So we'll make sure we keep our eyes peeled, and we'll tell everyone else to keep their eyes peeled.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. We can't wait to be there as well, and we'll have a stand right opposite the conference. So please, if anyone's there, do come and see us, and we'll really look forward to it.
All right, well, thank you so much for coming to the studio today, Ian, and we can't wait to see you in May.
Fantastic.